the first person that you see at work, they're going to give you their intention for the day, which is usually not really where you need to be going. Or if you're in your business, you're going to be given issues and problems throughout your day. And if you haven't set your intention, then you're just putting out fires.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Dominic Teich. Dom, or what other fighter pilots call him, which is Slice, brings his fighter pilot background and applies it to guide pilots, athletes, business owners, and students with afterburner techniques that American fighter pilots use to ensure mission completion. As an Amazon best-selling author, business owner, entrepreneur, civilian, and military instructor pilot, he knows that busy individuals and teams struggle with information overload. Since 2002, Dom has guided hundreds of students toward their goals. His blueprint is called Single Seat Mindset, an impactful group of 40-plus fighter pilot guides with combined experience of 700 plus years. They share proven formulas and life advice to the inner circle community to ensure success and big goal achievement, all while avoiding overwhelm, overload, and flame out. They dive deep into productivity world to provide guidance through short, impactful steps. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Dom. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so am I. For those of you that are listening, Dom's got a cool cap on. So for you, those of you watching on YouTube, you know that I'm a hat guy, right? Especially being a bald dude, but I like your hat. Just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Dominic, one of the things I focus on my podcast initially when it starts, and it doesn't matter how long it takes, is a person's origin story. And everybody thinks that back end story of our life starts from school, like high school up, and it doesn't. It starts from your earliest recollections of what you recall. The things that we are willing to actually think about and share also build a greater connection of know, like, and trust with the people that are listening. So do me a favor, share whatever you feel comfortable with, but tell me the key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently.
So Dwight, I actually haven't talked about this on a podcast before, but what you asked was my earliest memories, and I had never really thought of this before, but we grew up in Spokane, Washington, so probably not too far of a difference from the weather that you experience up there in Alberta. Very similar, kind of just cooler temperatures. We got snow in the winter. We got some decent summertime temperatures, for about 3 months. But we grew up in little houses, and Dad was a very driven individual. So he was a, kind of a self-made man in many respects. But our houses were, the first 3 little homes that we lived in were always under renovation. So he was always upgrading or updating things. And so I think even as a little kid, I just remember running through these homes, and it was a playground because you could run right through the walls, right? There was no sheetrock up a lot of times as he was putting up new studs. And I think looking back to that and kind of correlating it to it now is owning a real estate business, but then also being a fighter pilot and being able to do all the renovations myself or contract them out and kind of have an eye for that. I learned that as a little kid. And I think a lot of times, we forget that as we grow up. You forget the profession that you're in, and the people that are growing up, and kind of how it's going to form them. Um, so yeah, three little homes, kind of we lived in the city, and really nice areas, from what I could remember as a kid. Older areas, but fun nonetheless. And then we moved to the country, and I think that's really where a lot of my explorative type experiences came from, was just living out in the country. And we had three wheelers back then, three wheel off road vehicles, which were, I guess a lot of people think they're dangerous, but if you ride them like an idiot, yes, they are dangerous. But just riding dirt bikes and shooting our bow and arrows and our BB guns, and just being out, kind of out in the country. And so as I've grown up, fast forward to now, we lived. I've been kind of all over the world in the military, but having settled down in the Phoenix area, we recently this year moved into a bigger property, so the kids can have a lot of those same experiences that I got to have growing up. Trees to climb on, and horses next door, and just that experience really helped me see a different aspect of life. And I thought, well, one day I was talking to my wife. I'm like, what are all these investments, and what have we been working for if we're just going to hold on to it all so tight? Like, why not throw some money at this new life, essentially? And it has been probably the best thing that I have experienced for my family in my life. And it's been crazy. And I don't know if I would have done that had my dad not done that for us as kids, is make that big leap from the city life out into the country.
That is a fantastic origin of what you shared. One of the things that really struck me is what you mentioned, your dad doing these sort of things and giving you those experiences, and now you are doing the same thing towards your own family. It's the same with me. Look, people don't understand that learned behavior, the things that we learn from our family, maybe it's not even family, it can be a close relative, or it can be kids that we hang out with in school or extracurricular activities, have a strong influence on us. We don't give enough credit to it until we get older. I look back at
Yeah.
my life and I give a ton of credit to things back in the day that I was just like, I didn't like, or I didn't understand, and
Yeah.
realize that it molded me into the man that I am today, the dad that I am today toward my kids and grandkids. And you're so right. I love your statement about the three wheelers. And if they're not dangerous unless people drive them like idiots. I have my own idiot story of with a three wheeler, but that was because I was driving like an idiot.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
but so I'm familiar with that too. Firing BB guns, pellet guns. I still
Yeah.
have them for years. My son and I, we went to a local range in our city because I don't live out in the country. I grew up in a small community of 10,000 people. Now I live in a community of 1.5 million. So we go to
Jeez.
we've got ranges around here, well, not anymore since the pandemic. They're all closed, but where you could go shoot BB guns, pellet guns. So when my daughters were never interested, we go and do that too. So some of the life experiences that my dad passed on to me from hunting and fishing, and the business
Yeah.
acumen that he taught me from his own business as an entrepreneur, I caught that all, and it continues to grow as I age. I don't know if you have that same experience where you look back and think of things and go, "Oh wow, that shaped me in such
Yeah.
a remarkable way."
Yeah. I think the trap that I fell into, as I like you were saying, as you grow older and it continues to shape you and it continues to grow, there was a point where it mentally I kind of I lost it. And it was probably 6 7 years ago. um, I had a big mental breakdown, and that was after you know being a civilian and military instructor pilot, being around the world, being on multiple deployments, going on these trips, like being to countries all around the world, and just go 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 go. And I never really stood back, um, and just really focused in on what am I doing, where am I going, what's the bigger why, what significance does this have that I'm working on, what significance am I, and these are all things that I think a lot of people end up doing throughout their life. Um, but the big thing that I learned from all of that is that as it continues to grow, there's only so much that one person can do. And so my dad, what I learned from him was he was a he could do everything himself. And the problem with that is as you continue to grow, you can't that's the wrong mindset. And in fact, what I learned from all of it was I started firing myself from different jobs within my own business. And I learned that I'm good as a founder. I have a lot of energy to get things going, but once it's going, I get bored. And I can do this CEO type stuff. I can run a business. I don't like to though. So what I've done is essentially fired myself from the majority of any contracting project. I don't mind overseeing things, but I'm not going to be the foreman that's standing and honchoing all of the different subcontractors and all that kind of stuff. It's just too much. And I learned that the hard way because we went from, my dad owned a bunch of real estate property growing up. And so that's kind of what I saw that work. I saw that give us a different life than most people get to have. And so I started doing that. And then where I broke was when I went from buying single family homes to my first 8-unit little mini apartment complex. And it needed a lot of work. And I was doing what my dad did. I was in there renovating and subcontracting things out. And it was the third Christmas break. And I was inside of one of these units. And I just stopped for a second. And I was like, I've got little kids at home. And I'm renovating a property during my time off from work because I'm a full-time instructor pilot. And I remember taking the sledgehammer and I chucked it through the kitchen wall and it went flying in through the walls, 2 walls, and into the bathroom behind the kitchen. And I locked up the door. And from there on, I was like, I don't know what it takes to do this, but I'm going to hire contractors. I'm going to start hiring handymen. And that's when I hired my first property manager. And from there, I fired myself from a lot of jobs. I was no longer an accountant. I had no business doing any of that stuff. So I did run into a guy at that time, and he said, if you want to value your time like a millionaire, you need to treat your time like it's worth $500 an hour. And now I would be lying to you if I told you I haven't violated that at some point during this whole process. But if you treat your time like that, you'll look at projects differently. Like I don't need to drive an hour. I don't need to drive 30 minutes to get to a property to climb on top of a roof that I could potentially fall off of to check on some shingles that had got blown up in a windstorm. I have a property manager that can contact a handyman, and that's his job. That's his profession. Like that's what I do now. And a lot of people don't understand that, but I'm like, I just saved myself an hour climbing onto a roof, potentially a 30 to 45-minute run to a hardware store to figure out what I need to buy, and then another hour, and then potentially I'm going to ruin something or fall off the roof, and now I spent a whole day fixing a $50 project.
Well, how many people devalue their time all the time, right?
Yeah.
It happens daily. And you've gone through the process of what the majority of the population of the world does not grasp: reflection. Actually saying to themselves, like, what am I doing? Being the master of everything and the master is not the way to go. My dad was like that too for certain things, whereas I learned the opposite. So I'd look at him and go, well, I think to myself, why are you with such a successful business and so many staff still mowing your lawn? And it didn't grasp on me until now in his 80s. He still mows his lawn, but he actually
Yeah.
enjoys it. He loves it.
Yeah.
So for him, it was a relaxing thing, something that could make his life a little better. Well, I look at mine. I live in the city and I have 3,000 square feet of lawn in the back. I ain't mowing it. I'm not interested. I used to. Now it's
Yeah.
just like I have somebody hired that charges me X amount for a whole month. And I love how you put that $500 an hour. I talk about that. That's what I my minimum value of my time is $500 an hour when people ask me to do or expect things that aren't in my wheelhouse. I have
Yeah.
learned to stay in my lane. Like you said,
Yeah.
you can do things, but maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you
Yeah.
should focus on your strengths and give up your weaknesses. It doesn't make you weak to give up your weaknesses. It makes you stronger. It makes you a
Yeah.
better leader. It makes you, as you were saying, a better parent. Sledgehammer through all the walls, like, screw that. I'm spending this time with my family. Because one of the biggest things our world doesn't understand is when you reflect, you actually have to make change. You
Mm.
can't, most people reflect and boo-hoo woo-hoo, and they complain, and they form an opinion of themselves or other people's opinions of them, and they adopt it, and then get into a life of addiction and avoidance.
Yeah.
And those of you that are listening, it's never too late to give a heck about your life. It's never too late to move forward. And just, I like that, fire yourself. You got to fire yourself sometimes. In life, there's people that you need to rely on to do their wheelhouse, what they're good at, what they've chosen to do, and realize that life's in session. This ain't a dress rehearsal. Use your hours, your seconds of your life to continually build memories and a legacy that is in motion till the day you take your last breath, where you've helped and served others. And number one priority for me and for many should be your family. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. That was
Agree
great.
there. Agree with that.
Yeah. So, Dom, what made you believe that fighter pilot knowledge could help the non-fighter pilot achieve greater heights in life?
Well, you had mentioned something just a minute ago that kind of reminded me of something, and I think there's you have to kind of know where you sit on the spectrum. Am I an action oriented person where I'm go go go, or am I more of a reflective person? And I think the answer, because I'm an action based person, I need to slow down and reflect more, and vice versa. Somebody that's reflecting a lot needs more action. So those, you kind of have to know yourself, know your strengths, like we were talking about. Like, I can swing hammers and install a sink and put in cabinets, but why? What does that's I'm working in the business and not on my business. I'm not running it. I'm essentially inside of it, trying to push it forward, and it's not the way to go. But from a fighter pilot standpoint, I think one of the most important things to know is, just like even a professional sports player, the fighter pilots aren't born that way, right? They're learned behaviors, and that's a really good thing to hear if you're not a fighter pilot or not a professional sports player, or you're not a doctor yet, or whatever you're trying to achieve in your life that is big and grandiose, is that they're all learned behaviors, right? Like, college takes a long time to get through if you want to do that. High school, all of these things, if you want to go to a program and learn how to be a welder or an electrician, there's time involved in something that is worthwhile. And those are all learned behaviors, and you can't really cheapen time. Now, granted, there's things that can accelerate you along. There's better programs. We can use flight simulators, have really helped us become better pilots in the 21st century. But I think the big thing that I've noticed, and we're getting ready to publish our third volume of Single Seat Wisdom. That's just a collection of short stories, all written by fighter pilots, and we're up to 50 short stories, each written by a different fighter pilot. And they're just short little books. And I think for an action-minded person, we intentionally did that. We limited the word count of each chapter, just because a lot of people that are go-getters, they want to do something bigger in life. They don't have time to sit down and read a 500-page book. Or they don't want to make the time for that because they're driven and they know where they're going. So from a fighter pilot standpoint, to kind of get back to your question, is that a lot of people have, just like anybody, I had written the first volume as kind of a hobby. And that's where single seat mindset started, is we're single seat fighter pilots, and we're trained to think differently. Just like a Major League Baseball player is trained to think differently when he stands in the batter's box. He's not thinking about how he's going to swing the bat. All that information is trained, and it's moved from what I know, the prefrontal cortex of your brain to the motor cortex. It's a stimulus. They see this, they do this. And so fighter pilots, every single day, when we start pilot training, you start out at 80 miles an hour in a little airplane with two seats and a wooden propeller, and then the next the next airplane you go to has a jet engine with a propeller and it flies upside down, and the next jet after that has two engines and it goes supersonic. And so there's all of the blocking and tackling steps that happen. Everybody goes through that. And so I think if you're going to make that big, you can either walk up the stairs or you can do box jumps depending on how you want to get to your goals. But from outside the fighter pilot world, the reason I made single seat mindset and we moved it from a hobby into a business is we give all of the money to a children's cancer nonprofit. So 100% of the proceeds from single seat mindset we give away. The books have significance in the sense that, my kids, when I move on, can fight over my real estate and blow all their wealth, but they can't go take all these books off of people's shelves. So
I
there's
love that.
all of these things that we've learned. But just to finish your question, it's that fighter pilots, just like any big thing that you do in your life, a doctor doesn't become a heart surgeon without all of those stepping blocks. And so I turned it into a business and started kind of more or less broadening the people that we're trying to help, because I started getting so much feedback from business owners. Hey, this is directly applicable to what I'm going through right now and how I'm being challenged.
Yeah, it's most people want the finish line without all the effort that goes along to get there. They want to go from the start block of Monopoly and go to the end and be a multimillionaire. They just don't understand. But you're right. I look at my journey in life and the different careers I've had, and as a serial entrepreneur, the different businesses that I've participated in, and each one of them, every time I tried jumping the gate and not really putting the effort in and thinking that I could, well, that person tells me it takes this long to learn it, or this is what's the effort you're going to have to put in to get there. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm smarter than the average bear, right? I can
Yeah.
figure it out sooner. And every single time I'd get to where I thought I was at, and then I'd look back and go, oh my gosh, I didn't do that very well. That person was kind of right. Back to that reflection thing, right? So I appreciate that. So you got 50 short stories. Starting out with the first volume, what was it like? What kind of resistance did you get from within the community when you thought of this idea? Or was there a combination of people sitting around a table that came up with this idea? What was the process like? Did you have a lot of naysayers, or did you have a lot of supporters right off the bat?
Well, so one of the biggest obstacles, if you're in the military, you cannot use your military affiliation in the United States military to profit. So I mean, we're dealing with a huge bureaucracy, which is the United States government. So who can approve this? Nobody's done it before. I mean, fighter pilots have written books, but nobody has sat down and gotten 20 people to write short stories and then to get it all approved. And so the resistance was fierce. I'm a fighter pilot by trade, so building websites at the time was not my forte. So I'm sure there's a better word for it, but the website that I built to capture leads, essentially, because I didn't want to send 1,000 emails around trying to update things as the project moved on. A website's much easier to do. My website crashed 5 times. Just getting approval through the military wickets, and then moving even further than that, realizing that if I need to begin with the end in mind, as I think Dr. Covey talks about, and where is this going and what's the bigger why? And that's when I really was, I was mountain biking one morning and I was like, let's just give all the money away. And that way I'm more aligned with the project and less aligned with making money, because everybody likes to make money as a business.
Of course.
So I think that was kind of one of the, go ahead.
But you talked also about legacy, and let's backtrack a little bit to what you talked about with your kids. Your kids can blow all the real estate money, they can do all this stuff, but they can't take the books off the shelf. And you talked about Stephen Covey, and love the guy. I love his books.
Yeah.
But you literally all these hurdles, all these things that you went through with the book, you've created is all about legacy. And then on top of all that, man, you're donating money to child cancer. Like that's just people's purpose can't be always about money, even though they think that, my life's going to be better. Like money doesn't buy happiness. Money has no personality. Money is wielded in the hands of the person that's holding it. And people that strive to get all that money, and they strive to stress themselves out, or back to what we were talking about earlier, don't want to hire people to do this simplistic things. They're missing the journey of life. They're constantly missing the journey of life. And when you start enjoying the journey of life, when you have hurdles, as you talked about, there were some hurdles with the military, getting the book approved, the different things that you want, the nuances of the website, they become easier to get over when you realize that it's a journey and that you're serving other people, in my opinion.
100%. And I think
Right?
that's you hit the nail on the head in saying that if you're a person that wants to wake up and have a perfect day, you've already set yourself up for failure. I mean, and then if you have a difficult time rolling out of bed, so I actually turned a business off that was profitable, and basically got rid of it because it was for money, and it was profitable, but it became heavy. And when I'd roll out of bed in the morning, I wasn't excited about it because it was about money, and I started with the wrong why. Whereas this, even though I had all those hurdles, I had all those obstacles, I think, well, one, I'm stubborn and I'm persistent, and I don't mind hearing no, but I learned a lot of those business, I guess, things, owning businesses prior to doing this. So there was a lot of stuff that I leveraged moving into this project, but where it really took off is I probably a little bit out of, I don't know if I went back, I would still do the same thing, but it's not characteristic to essentially corner the wing commander who's a general and talk to him outside of his schedule, because he's got his entourage, he's extremely busy individual. But he came out of a meeting that I was in, and I literally just in the hallway said, "Sir, you don't know me. This is my name. In less than 2 minutes, I will stop talking. You literally just turn your back on me and walk away." And I gave him my literal like 69-second elevator pitch. And it was a big leap to ask the wing commander to write a story in this book. Oh, by the way, all of the authors pay to be a part of the book. So the money that we raise from them, I've formatted to where the money goes straight to the children's cancer nonprofit that we support. And so I was asking him for money. I was asking him to do work, to write a story. And then, oh, by the way, I also kind of had my eye on, if the wing commander is part of this book, I think I'm going to have a lot more traction with the bureaucracy saying yes. Because the wing commander says, "Hey, I'm writing this story." And then and sure enough, he contacted the legal office, and boom, within a couple of weeks, we were off to the races. And so
Wow.
but that was months of just grinding it out. And actually, at times, thinking that maybe it was something that I shouldn't be doing.
But I look at and listen to your story and you sharing and going through being, through the business acumen you've gone through being a fighter pilot and what you've learned. That all came to that fruition to talk to him. It gave you that confidence. Obviously, you were probably nervous as all get out, but you were able to deliver and sell yourself and sell your dream and idea in, like you said, 69 seconds. That's just amazing. Like, I love hearing stories like that where people have not let anything stop them. And one of the themes that I find with a lot of the guests that I have on my show that I prove to be on here, they're tenacious. They understand tenacity. They understand that they can't just figure everything out all at once, that they can't just get everything they want because they should, that they have to earn it. They have to put themselves outside of their comfort zone where success is and be uncomfortable. And you did that with I believe you said general, right?
Yeah.
That is amazing. Good for you. And all
Thank you.
for what? To serve mankind, humankind, whatever people want to hear, just to be that person that's a shining light for others. And at the
Yeah.
bottom end of it, that uncomfortableness now has you 50 short stories in and a large sum of money donated. One thing I didn't realize, because I was reading your stuff, I don't remember. Obviously, I can't read everything about you. I read quite a bit last night. I didn't realize that they had to pay to be in there. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That good for you. So you've,
Imagine that marketing, the
oh
marketing that
yeah.
went into that. Hey,
Oh,
can you
I
do the
can't.
work? Oh, by the way, it's going to cost you.
Yeah, you gotta drop some coin out of your wallet. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Good for
Yeah.
you though. Like that's just, you know what though? I don't know if you are, but I am. I'm a God-fearing person, and I think that everything happens for a reason. When we have the right intention and our heart is in the
Yeah.
right place, I
Yeah.
believe that God shines down on us and brings us the right people to help us over that hurdle. As you said, he contacted the legal office. He, you know what I mean? And just things just
Yeah.
started clicking like that. And, you
Yeah.
know, to think that that just happens, I don't believe that does. I believe if we have the right intentions and a good heart and it's meant to be, God brings us the right people.
Yeah.
Now, are we open-minded enough to see that that person is the person that's going to help us? I ask people, what's going on? Oh, I've got this problem and this issue and that issue. And I'll tell them, well, I'll give them some advice. Or they'll say to me, they've gotten advice from a group of people, yet they're still out looking for the answer because they're not willing, they're not open-minded. I don't know if you run into that a lot, but you run into somebody that was just, I'm going to
Yeah.
help you. Let's do
Yeah.
this. What an amazing
Yeah.
story. I love it.
And I think the thing that I started doing, because I'm an action, I'm a high achiever, and that has really big gotchas if you're not careful, right? We talked about that. So, you know, I think the big thing for me is I tried to sit still for 15 minutes. I started big. I tried to sit still for 15 minutes each morning and kind of, just sit in silence, whether that was prayer or reflection or whatever. And I had to chop it down to 5 minutes. And so if anybody doesn't have 5 minutes, I mean, if you don't have 5 minutes in the morning to just sit still, and like you said, the word intention, so that's your intentionality for your day. That is one of the most effective things that I've done. And granted, maybe not everybody needs to do it, but I would say give it a whirl. It's only 5 minutes. So in the morning when you start your day out, wake up 5 minutes early. If you've got, like for me, I had kids that would wake up at 4:45, so I had to start waking up at 4 so that I could work on my business, then take care of my kids, and then help the wife, and then go into work and do my full-time job. So that's how my businesses started. But the 5 minutes, you can call it 5 minutes for freedom, 5 minutes of prayer, 5 minutes of reflection, but set your intentionality at the beginning of the day. Otherwise, I don't remember who said this, but whoever the first person that you see at work, they're going to give you their intention for the day, which is usually not really where you need to be going. Or if you're in your business, you're going to be given issues and problems throughout your day. And if you haven't set your intention, then you're just putting out fires.
I agree. The last podcast from this past week of mine that I released was actually me. I usually always have guests on. I think I've done 3 individual or 4 individual ones in 150 episodes, and it was all on intentionality, because
Huh.
people don't live intentional lives in
Yeah.
regards to how they plan, how they goal set, their finances. And if they were taught, honestly, Dom, if we were taught this in school, intentionality, gratefulness exercises, I like how you put it. You can call it whatever you want. Spend 5 minutes. I do. Like this morning, I wake up before my alarm clock. I don't know if it's just my personality and what I've developed through personal development over the last 30 years. I wake up well before my alarm clock, usually about 15 minutes. I do not get out of bed without having gratefulness. Like have a
Mm.
gratitude exercise that I go through. Praise God for being given another shot, another day where I
Yeah.
can actually get out of bed, or I have a roof over my head, food in my fridge, a bed to sleep in. When there's so many millions of people that have less than me, I need to be grateful for what I have. And I look
Yeah.
at it as that I'm creating a shield for my day. And people
Mm.
will go, what do you mean? Well, I get up out of bed. And if, like you mentioned, the first person you talk to, they're going to give you their intention. And it's not always going to be great. If I've had
Yeah.
a heart of gratitude and I praised, you know, God for being alive, I can handle so much more.
Yeah.
And I'm less reactionary. I'm more,
Mhm.
you know, oh, I understand that's a consequence that you're going through, or I understand that what you're telling me about. Let's deal with it. I've learned to be more calm because of it. I used to be
Yeah.
that high achiever. And I'm not saying I'm not still, but in the sense of high energy when I'm dealing with
Yeah.
things. And I'd be like either here or over here in a
Yeah.
scale. And for those listening, I put my hand from being at 0 all the way to 180. And it's just by being intentional and having gratefulness in my day and appreciating what I was given. And if you're not God fearing, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. You can still be grateful just for waking
Yeah.
up. You can be grateful for having a great life. You can be grateful even for the challenges you face. There's people that would literally give everything to have some of the challenges Dom and I've gone through, because on the other side of that challenge is a reward if you have the right intention. It's all back to intentionality.
Hmm. That's crazy that you just recorded an episode about that not too long ago. But
Last
it's so
last
true.
week it went last week it went live, and it was about because you know why I did it. I have so many people reaching out to me, like, what do you do? Because honestly, my podcast is nothing to do with my finance business. My life, I've been a life coach and finance planner, financial planner now. This is my, I started in 2002. Like I've been doing this a long time, 21 years on the 19th of September. I've been doing this. I did it because so many people are asking questions. What do you stand for? And yes, I'm on other people's podcasts and I'm telling this story, but my own listenership didn't know really my story.
Oh,
They weren't spending the time being intentional to go on my website, read my origin, which is on there, or, going back to the few, because I've done it sporadically. When I get questions, I end up, like I said, I've done it 3-4 times, not to the level I did last week. Last week's was actually like a 50-minute podcast, just sharing some things about why I do what I do and how it's so focused on intentionality. And the reason I bring this up is I had a guest on the other day. He's American. He lives in Alaska. He owns a very successful Veritas Financial Corporation and very successful man. And I recorded with him on Wednesday. My podcast go live Tuesday. And we're talking before we're recording. He had some extra time. So we were just visiting before recording. And he was starting to say stuff to me. I said, well, where'd you hear that from? So well, I listened to your podcast this morning. And I said, oh, well, it hasn't even been out 24 hours. He says, well, I figured I better, he says, some just told me I had to listen to this podcast because it's talking about intentionality. He says, and so we ended up integrating that into our recording, and just like we're doing now, but it is so powerful. Reflection, intentionality, and then being tenacious and never giving up and knowing when to give up, because you need to be tenacious and responsible about other things and giving away your weaknesses. It all ties together and people just don't understand. And I want to teach them so bad. And that's why I do this. This podcast is a passion project. It's not for money.
yeah.
It's all about showcasing great people like you so that maybe one person goes, oh my gosh, that is amazing, because they tie to your history. You're tied to your origin, right? So I appreciate
Yeah.
everything you're sharing. It's really
Yeah.
powerful.
Thank you. I
You're
think the
welcome.
one word of what you were saying about intentionality is if you find that you're more of a dreamer or a wanderer, right? So you've got a 50,000 foot view and you're like, well, how do I get going? And the one word that comes to mind is action. Because even if you're wrong 50% of the time, you're going to be 50% further ahead than you were if you weren't doing anything. And but if you don't have a good intention and you don't start out and have that plan, your actions will be futile. You have to have a plan, obviously. So
No,
there
absolutely.
was a test pilot, fighter pilot, astronaut that wrote a chapter in our Single Seat Wisdom Volume 2, and his was plan, execute, debrief. And so put your plan together. If you want to take action, put your plan together, execute your plan, and then debrief yourself, or whatever you want to call that word, debrief. That's one of the most missed things is people go, oh, this was awesome. Like I bought and sold property or I started a business or whatever. And it was like, well, did you ever ask yourself the question, was it luck? And that was something that, I had some newbie luck when I started my businesses, which was fun. But then I also had some pretty big gut punches when I maybe didn't write the landscaping budget into one of my pretty large projects, and I ended up, $110,000 in the red early on when I didn't have two pennies to rub together because I jacked up the budget, and it was a hard lesson learned. But as I debriefed myself, I knew I was going to look back 6 months and go, that was a hard lesson learned, but we'll get through this. We'll get over this hurdle. I can figure this out.
But what
So I
do a
think
lot
the
of people
action
do though? They quit.
shut down. Yeah.
They shut down
Easy
$110,000
crucible.
in their red and they shut down instead of just looking at it that, you know what? Life lesson,
Yeah.
right? It
It's
wasn't a
not,
mistake. Quit calling
yeah.
things a mistake. It's a life lesson. I got to learn from this. Now, if you do it again and again and again and again,
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe work for McDonald's or something, but yeah.
yeah, we need
Yeah.
people. We need the people to ask us if we want fries. That's part of the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, even a bigger thing that you had mentioned that another fighter pilot that I was a retired guy that has flown a bunch of really old school airplanes that I just loved, and they were the fighter jets that I grew up with, the old F4s and the F100 series fighter jets, and I was talking to him one day because he wrote a chapter in our third volume, and I said, I got stuck in this achievement hamster wheel for so many years, where people from the outside they look at me and they go, dude, that guy is really successful. The problem is I never defined success, and so I was achievement. I was just on to the next achievement, achieve, 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 and I never defined success. Well, here's the next problem that I had. I then realized I was doing that, and I slowed down. I said, what is success? So then I defined success for myself, and very quickly I achieved that success. And then I had another big breakdown, and I'm like, well, why? I was achievement minded, then I was success minded. I got success, but the problem was is the story didn't continue on. And so the word that he used that I'll never forget is significance. And that's when single seat mindset started. And we started writing these books is after you are achieving, as you're achieving, go, well, how do I define this success as I'm achieving and getting there? But then even further than that, it's the bigger why, which is significance. What significance does this have? Yeah, for yourself, right? But also for your family, your wife, your kids. If you don't have a family, those around you, your friends, colleagues, for the world. And then, oh, by the way, that story, if it stops, so if your success story stops, you buy a $10 million property, you sell it for $20 million, and that's how you define success. Well, you're probably going to end up under the streets of Las Vegas with no money because that's not a very compelling story. It's what are you doing with that money? What are you doing with your business?
Well, and even
So,
like you mentioned luck, and you mentioned the fact that do this and you get 10 million or whatever amount of money. So many people don't have what I focus on, having core values. This is what my why is. This is what my reasons are, and then use it as a template. My core values are very simplistic: faith, family, work. The same three core values that I started developing when I went through my personal development process in 1993. It's been 30 years. Are the same ones that guide me back, right? And so that I always focus on what's important to me. Otherwise, I get too super, I got the horse blinders on and I'm giving her, and I miss the journey. I miss so many different things. And you mentioned about the fact, well, you had some success and then all of a sudden something has gone wrong. I look at it this way. Sometimes in life, if we don't have that gut punch, that thing that goes badly, we don't understand the joys of success. We don't have enough appreciation if everything comes too easy. Because I know some people that just seems like everything comes so easy to them. And
yeah,
things are so great. They seem so great on the facade of their lives, but yet
yeah,
they have no core values. They have no real reason why. It's all money driven. And if I open up the door and looked into their lives and went, oh my gosh, they're miserable.
yeah,
They've never realized the difference between joy and the fact that failure had a reason for the joy, or got gut punch. And yeah,
yeah.
I like this is a great conversation. I love it. I know we're running out of time here, so I want to ask a couple more questions. We may have to look in the future for you and I to get on and have some more conversation, because this has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. One of the things I'm really kind of curious is why the nickname Slice.
So as a young guy, you talked about failure. Typically, fighter pilots get named by the squadron of fighter pilots that you're flying with as a young guy. So they go through a naming process, and usually it's because of something stupid you did. In my case, a failure. So I was for lack of a better term, it was a little bit different. But we were essentially doing a dog fight where I was fighting an instructor pilot, and he was. We were a lot of our sets. We were passing nose to nose, really fast. So think, 500 plus mile an hour, 5, 6, 700 plus mile an hour passes. Another jet's going the other way, and then you're doing things within your jet to achieve the first kill. So it's dogfighting. If you've watched Top Gun
Yeah,
Maverick or
yeah,
any of those
yeah.
videos,
Of
yeah.
course, yeah.
Well, I broke a training rule and I pointed at my instructor pilot too long, and we had a very close pass. And being in the Samurai Squadron at the time, that was our squadron mascot. They said I tried to slice my instructor pilot in half. And I was, it was a kind of a funny story. But the bigger lesson is like you had talked about is I failed. I failed in the sense that I broke a training rule. I almost died for it, and I get a call sign for it. And I've been called a lot worse than slice, so I was pretty happy with the call sign. But as I got that call sign, I think the bigger lesson is, a quote comes to mind from Tony Robbins, and that's failure is an event, not a person. And that event I failed at. But me as a person, I didn't fail. I didn't fail in the bigger, grander scheme. But I did fail, and that's fine. That's part of learning. In fact,
But it
fighter
hasn't
pilots,
defined you, though.
no. And I mean, everybody fails. In fact, most of life is a big old failure. And so
100%.
just instead of celebrating mediocrity today, which is just rampant on social media and the
Oh,
news and everything, that's literally, hey, I'm having a problem. Everybody jump on social media and give me thumbs up and likes and consolation, and then tell me that I'm awesome because I'm so mediocre and I'm worthless and I'm not doing anything. I'm not taking any action. I don't have a bigger why in my life. Let's not celebrate that. Let's celebrate some people's failures, but then go, hey, I learned from this. I learned from that it was embarrassing, but now I have a call sign and I'll never forget it
I
because
love it.
it was,
That's
so things go
such a
on.
unique story, and yeah, we could go on and on about it, but I want to respect your time. I know you only have a few more minutes, because there's so many more things I wanted to ask you about, but that's okay. This has been so full of
We'll keep it
knowledge.
PG.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
My production company, if it's not, they end up posting it to the different services. It has to be rated as explicit, even if somebody
Uh,
drops one F bomb or they say any
oh,
form of
really?
swear. Oh yeah, which is fine. I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with that. I look at this in life though that those that resonate with my show or the guests are going to come anyway. They might
Yeah.
shake it, not like something, but they shake it off. They might not. There's people that listen to my show that don't like the fact that I talk about God a lot and Christianity.
Yeah.
Oh well, if you want to be part of my tribe, you need to put up with some of the things that are who I
Right.
am. I'm not going to change who I am at my core with my core values to make other people like me, because then I'm living a facade. I'm not living my true unique self, and that's not what God wants for any of us, right? So but
Yeah.
yeah, we could go on and on and on. I'm gonna wrap this up soon. I got one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Dom, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Giving a heck. I think it's one of the easiest things if you are trying to, and I think that if you're listening to this podcast, you're either trying to learn something new or trying to help somebody or guide your kids or whatever. And that the big thing that I changed was I started going to bed a little bit earlier each night, which meant I didn't eat a bag of chips or drink a beer or watch an extra Netflix show and waste time. So I started going to bed a little bit earlier. So the kids go to bed, chat with the wife, and we go to bed. I woke up refreshed. I was awakened. I wasn't woke, but I was awakened, refreshed, and then I started that intentionality exercise like you had even talked about you do. And I find that almost all successful people do that in one way, shape, or form. They wake up, they're grateful for the life they have. They're even grateful for their problems and their failures because you can learn from them. And you start that day with that intentionality, and you do one thing a day. That you did 360, you have 365 days a year. If you just do one thing a day, that's all you're going to get a lot done. But make sure that intention has, like we had talked about before, define the success for yourself, but then make sure that it has significance behind that. So once you're done with that and you've achieved success, how does that story keep going? Otherwise, you're going to find yourself like me, just mind muddled and kind of confused on where I was going in life, because my success had a lot to do with me personally. It was kind of selfish success versus a bigger significance, a bigger why.
I think most of us that have become successful in whatever we're working on have had to go through that muddled part of our lives,
Yeah.
like you talk about. Let's be real.
Yeah.
All these people that say that they never had any stress or trials or tribulations, I just chuckle. They're just not
Yeah.
being honest with themselves. They don't want they want to seem like a Superman or in front of
Yeah.
everybody. Sometimes vulnerability is the best way to connect, and just being real with people that, yes, I've achieved this, but this is what I had. And one other thing that you mentioned, we talk about doing that exercise in the morning and being intentional and being grateful. At night, I also analyze,
Mm.
and I think to myself, and I tell myself all the time, you never had a bad day. You had some character building moments that you are going to learn from. I'm serious. I've been working on
Yeah.
this for 5 years, and I've started coaching on it quite a bit. It's,
Yeah.
I used to laugh at it too. People used to say, well, I'd laugh along with them. They wouldn't believe me when I'd say, "Oh yeah, I've been working on this for 5 years now. This is going to be my
Yeah.
fifth, going into my sixth year soon, where I've been working on the fact that I'm never going to have a bad day. It's impossible. I always have good days. Oh yeah, that's impossible. Well, how am I disrespecting my life if I tell myself that one incident that happened in the day ruined the rest of the day, and then I took away from there my gratefulness in the morning that I woke up, and I threw that away. I threw away the fact that I was able to get up. Maybe I, see my kids. Maybe I got to have a coffee with a friend or have a great call with somebody like yourself. And then I have something an hour from now go on that's bad. And I go, oh,
Yeah.
I had a bad day. I just
Yeah.
disrespected myself. First and foremost, I disrespected God, disrespected you. Right.
Yeah.
So I work so hard on that to make sure I reflect at night and dial things back. Is it tough some days? It is, Dom.
Yeah.
Some days I'm just like, okay, this is the person you want to be. You got to
Yeah.
put in the baby steps. Like you said, that one little thing every single day can make a difference. Right.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that last
And I
message.
wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you, because that's kind of part of the plan, execute, debrief mantra. Is in the morning you're planning your intentionality, during
Yeah.
the day you're executing, and then at night you're debriefing yourself. How did I do?
And I
And
love that though, and,
yeah.
and it's a great way to think of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you weren't laughing at me, but I've had people go like, "That's crazy. There's no way that you could have a day like that, and it's impossible to get there." And I challenge them, even people I've had in a podcast.
Yeah.
Let's talk. In 30 minutes, I can teach you a principle I call the 70-30 principle, which will drive you to never have a bad day again. And it's something that is a habit, but it's also, you have to practice it. It's all back to intentionality, right? It's
Yeah.
all back to
Yeah.
intentionality. What do you want to do? Why are you on this planet? Are you here
Yeah.
just to be a placeholder on a chair? Or are you
Yeah.
here to do great things? And that's why I have fantastic individuals like you. So thank you so much for being on the show. I want to respect your time because I'm already a couple minutes past it. Could you please let the listeners know what the best way to reach you, Dom?
Yeah, so our launch pad, or our runway, if you will, to use an Air Force or airplane type term, is singleseatmindset.com. We're single seat fighter pilots. As far as I know, I hope somebody would correct me, but we're the largest online group of fighter pilots. Granted, I run the business, but I have access to all these guys that have written stories, and that's where a lot of our acceleration comes from. So
What an
single seat
amazing
mindset.
community. What an amazing community
Yeah,
you've created, brother. Like, congratulations on that. Whether
thank
it's
you.
the biggest or the smallest, your
Yeah,
intentionality to change lives and to donate money and just make a difference. That's amazing. Congrats.
yeah,
So I appreciate you being on. Any last comments you want to make before I wrap it up?
yeah. I appreciate you. Thanks for letting me be on your show.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm blessed and highly favored, right, to have great guests like you. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Dom. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose.
not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.